Welcome to another time-lapse video. The project I am painting over today is one I completed in my previous semester of painting class. The goal for this project was to achieve a relationship between an outer and an inner environment. If we had been able to have class on campus, we would probably have been painting from a live model setup and using the windows of the classroom. However, as we were painting at home, we had to make it work for our individual, unique situations. I painted from a photograph because I can't use oil paint in the house. It was a really interesting exercise for me because after a semester of painting from life, where you kind of adjust everything as you like it to fit on the page, this felt kind of like it gave more of a constraint because you already have everything fit into a rectangle that is the shape of the photo. It was kind of difficult for me to create a composition based on a photo in our house because you can't fit all that much in the photo frame, especially if your rooms are small. You can only back up so far to capture as much of the room as possible. My problem with the original composition with the dog and the window and the couch is that somehow it felt empty and yet stagnant. It wasn't open and there wasn't room to add other things, although there was all this space. Previously, I experimented with adding more things. I had a rose on the floor. I added that rose that you can currently see, which wasn't actually in the room. But nothing resolved the issue. Now looking back, I think it may have been that there was all this potential for action, but there were no real relationships between any of the objects in the picture. It was like I had all of these things, but none of them really had a meaning, none of them were connecting. There wasn't a story. It was just a painting of a picture with weird colors, and it wasn't working. When I didn't know how to fix the composition, I tried to take a design approach to resolve it by changing the colors, changing where the light and dark tones were, and changing where the high and low intensity colors were. If you've been watching my videos, you've seen me do this before in both of my paintings, and you'll know that it's not usually immediately successful. You need to experiment a lot to figure out what's going to work. This process can be time-consuming, and the time constraint for this painting in the class I was taking didn't allow me to come to a solution before we had to move on. As I demonstrated in my last video, painting with a wash is a great way to unify areas you're unsure about. I made a wash with ultramarine blue and solvent because I liked the watery texture that the combination of solvent and paint created in my last painting. I thought I could use this as an interesting base as well as dull down the contrast and leave me with the framework to continue with my painting. Next, I chose to add a figure looking out the window because I thought it would be an interesting way to connect the outside with the inside environment. I was too lazy to find a reference of a person looking out a window, so I used my memory of how I look in general to guide the proportions of a figure. Then I added another figure exactly the same. I thought it would be interesting to have kind of a duplicate of this person, and I had an interesting storyline to play with using that. Then I added another dog and another rose, and I began to cultivate a theme of duality. All of a sudden, the painting seemed to have a motive. Because the objects were in pairs, there seemed to be a comparison happening. And because the figures were the same person, there seemed to be kind of an inner narrative. That's when I realized I was painting about myself. Sometimes that'll happen when you're painting. Your subconscious kind of sneaks up on you and manifests on your canvas. This reminds me that there are several ways that a painting can take shape. You might begin with an abstract and then see something realistic in that abstract that you refine, and that becomes your focus. Conversely, you might begin painting from life and then turn that into an abstract by simplifying shapes and stylizing parts of it. No matter how you begin, the ending of the painting depends on a process, and the process is the important part. This is when the exploration and discovery that will ultimately lead you to a more interesting, more informed painting will happen. There's so much value in our mistakes and the things that we don't intend to happen. For example, I didn't know that making a wash with a lot of solvent would leave a strange dripping pattern on my canvas when it dried. But I liked it so much that in my next painting I did it intentionally. The key point here is that rather than being very particular about the outcome I wanted, I was open-minded about the outcome that actually ensued. And in the process, I learned a new painting technique to add to my painting vocabulary, as it were. If you paint with the intention of copying life or any rigid intention, then you are denying yourself the opportunity to explore and grow in a way that extends beyond technique. Anyone can learn to paint things hyper-realistically. That's the common language that we all see with our eyes, but only you can learn to paint with your own language, and that is a true gift to the world. So back to the topic of quarantine painting class, if anyone's interested. How this was able to work, it kind of worked, is we would do a Zoom call for class every day. We would meet and talk with our professor for 10 or 20 minutes at the start of each session. Then we would paint individually, separately for the duration of class, and then meet maybe 40 minutes before the end. And we would have to send photos of our progress to our professor periodically, or at least once before the end of the class. And then at the end, our professor would make kind of a PowerPoint of everyone's paintings, and we would go around and talk about them like we would normally do. Just to put this out there, I highly recommend taking art classes if you go to college, even if you're not studying art. I didn't major in art. First of all, it's a good release. Second of all, it enhances your creative thinking skills and your problem-solving skills in a way you wouldn't expect. Creative thinking and problem solving are transferable skills, which means that they are applicable to other disciplines and other areas of life. If you studied a liberal arts degree, like I did, you've probably been asked, what are you going to do with it? Or been told, like, you're not going to make money, you're not going to be able to pay off your student loans. Well, the thing is, you learn a lot of transferable skills, and you learn human skills. You learn people skills by studying history and literature and social sciences that you might not get, or you won't get as much of if you're studying a STEM major. And we do need our STEM majors. What they do is also very important. All I'm saying is that the skills you learn as a liberal arts major are equally as valid and useful in the real world. Anyway, end tangent, let's get back to painting. From here until the end, I was working with the balance of light and dark. I was working with contrasting colors. You see I have orange and blue, and then I have pale green and pale pink. Also, we have the light and dark with the dark blue and then the lighter pastel colors. I worked with these to create movement in the painting concerning the ways your eyes would bounce around between the forms and enter and exit. The point is for you to look at everything, and perhaps look at everything in a certain order. It can be hard to look away from a painting that has good movement. When I look at this, my eyes follow the orange from the top right to the bottom left, then back up to the middle where the window is. I follow the light down to the dogs. I see the dogs looking at each other. My eyes circle back up to the figure on the far left, and then back down diagonal to the right where the rose is. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like it, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss another video. Until next time.